do what you're told. Uh, I had a very bad experience. I was in communications. I went from rifleman to commo sergeant. The captain told me one day that there was a platoon to go to the enemy's front line and capture one of the enemy soldiers and bring him back for interrogation, and that I was to string a telephone line out ahead of time through no man's land where could be hooked on to, that we could communicate with battalion and communicate with the lieutenant in charge of the securing the enemy from the line, and then running this line out with my wireman. We were caught, or they saw us and started shooting, and we hid under a rock. So I learned you stay hid from the enemy and until dark, and then we went back. And then later, when we were supposed to capture the enemy, when we got in position, it's very obvious that they knew we were coming, and they come from behind their line like bees. We were pinned down, and we were supposed to have support in case this happened. We called for support. It never showed up. And our captain that was with me in the outpost that was right behind the action said he'd go see what happened. He didn't come back. So I called the lieutenant and told him we would set the hill on fire with asphalt. Not asphalt, matches, what is it? The
phosphorus.
Phosphorus round. I told the lieutenant we would call for phosphorus round. They burn bad, but they don't kill. And while this was happening, that he and the men could pull back, they could bring the wounded and leave the dead, what he done. And I went out with them, and the next morning I called the North Koreans and asked for a truce so we could come over and pick up the dead, which they granted. My learning there was you could hold your cool, but you got to stay within the command. And the North Koreans were very cooperative in letting us pick up our dead, and we did the same for them at times. It was quite a learning experience.
When you were serving, whenever you were scared and uncertain, what would you do to kind of help get you through, kind of the dark times of serving over there? What would you tell yourself, or what would you think?
What I would tell myself in dark times was to forget the dark times and think about the good things. And you knew at the bad times, and when the going is bad, you just dug in a little deeper and depend on your friends, your fellow soldiers. You find, I found a friend that I was with from basic training till I come home. We once realized that we would keep each other's back, so we arranged it so we could stay together, and did, and we come home. But you've got to depend on your friend. You've got to seek the Lord's help. It's very important.
How did you feel when you got the news that that you were headed home? Do you
Oh.
remember where you were?
When you in the army, to get home in combat, you rack up points. If you serve 1 year in combat, you automatically get to come home. So I knew, and I was very relieved, because I was not for killing and seeing people killed. I had told my captain at one time that he had to give me a job that I did not have to shoot at the enemy. So I was lucky he made me combo sergeant. Combo sergeants do not fight there like medics. They have to keep communication going. And I was so relieved to leave it all and come home, because I had a family here that I wanted to be with.
When you came home, what occupation did you start after Korea?
Well, when I came home from Korea, I was already doing carpenter work. So when I came home, first of all, I got married. And I went back to doing carpenter work and building, because from carpentry you learn to build, and building is very rewarding, seeing things develop, and that's also rewarding financially. So that's what I went right back to, was what I was doing before I was drafted into the war.
And so you continued carpentry, and you're also a business owner. Is that correct?
Well, yes, and through life you've got to figure out how you're going to feed the family. So with my carpentry, I worked hard to take care of the family, and I tried to, we had a rule of thumb: if you work hard enough 3 days to feed the family, you have 3 days to look for things to accomplish financially. Things like, I knew that being first, doing things, was rewarding, that you can pass on, that to be a successful business person, you look around at what you think would be best for the community and give it to them before anyone else does. When I was on the farm, when they come out with a self-trying hay baler, an older man agreed to take me as a partner, and we had the first self-tying hay baler. When I went to Florida, I had a partner, and we put in the first subdivision for trailer park subdivision. These things that I done along with my carpentry work on the business end, I come to Clarksville, they didn't have a car wash, automatic car wash. I built the first automatic car wash. When they come out with pre-engineered steel buildings, I was the first to start putting them up and selling them. So this was the business end that I worked along with my carpentry end. I kept doing that until I retired at 65. But the other half of my life, I was working on the business end that makes you money, work makes you a living. And so you have to work at that end to have both, and you can come out ahead.
When there are days that you don't necessarily want to get out of bed and kind of face the world, what do you tell yourself?
Oh, when the days you don't want to get up out of bed. First of all, you remember you set out to do something every day. You just plan ahead. You know that you need to get out of bed. So if you have something planned, then you just tell yourself you're going to get out of bed and you're going to do it. And if you make yourself get out of bed, do whatever you plan to do, it just keeps you going forever. I know. I'm 94.
So when you retired at the age of 65, did you pick up any new hobbies? How did you spend your days?
Well, that's when I really started my hobby, when I retired at